In today's video, something very special will happen because we get to time travel. We're going to find out if the Danny Rensch of today, guilty as charged, can play half as decent as the Danny Rensch of the past. Recently, we launched a Play Like Danny Rensch lesson series, which is a pretty exciting tool we have on Chess.com. You can get there by navigating in the main menu over to Lessons. Every lesson has a video along with follow-up questions. And we're going to jump right past the video and just see if I can remember moves that I played in my own games many moons ago. So here we go. Let's do a quick tutorial and see. How did I develop a piece with a threat? Okay, I'm going to be able to handle this one because this is a winnower French with queen g4. Queen g4 is the theory, and now the best move is bishop d3. So as long as I played decent theory, which I think I did, it should be fine. Now you're supposed to play queen h5. No, apparently not. Already not playing as good as I used to. This says this is a good move. Danny preferred to develop the c1 bishop. What did he play? Okay, we're going to try again. And we'll play the main line. I guess it's bishop g5. Okay. So after bishop to g5 and the queen comes out to a5, hitting c3, hitting the king. What is the theory here? Wow, this is embarrassing. But this is why you should try to play the course. We're going to play knight e2. Yeah, okay. Main line stuff here. Proud of myself right now. Now the move is either h4 or queen h5. One of the ideas here is that black's structure is so potentially weak because the lack of a dark squared bishop, because I have a lot of pieces facing this side of the board. So black is going to have to play for f6 and f5. That's kind of the key point, and so you have to be ready for that. But the other thing you have to watch out for is c4 comes in a lot of these positions, and the bishop is forced to trade. So if I remember correctly, the main line Tatev and I followed involved c4, where I traded on g6. What I don't remember is whether I played h4 first or castles, but I think it's h4. Oh, apparently not. h4, there's a stronger move. Try to find it. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that. Chess.com, whatever. I think, let's see, is queen h5 the idea? Queen h5, c4, you take g6, the queen comes back to e3, something like that. Castles is the... Actually, it has to be castles here, because now that they've officially put the knight on g6 and they're stopping h7 threats, they're also threatening to take on d4 because the pawn is pinned. So you got a castle. Okay. Look, I'm actually being a real chess player here. Using critical thinking is not my forte. Now I have to take on g6, and after captures, we have a structure that is very traditional, very well known in these French winnowers, where, again, black has kind of a broken chain, weak e6, along with maybe a weak kingside, but overall, what they've gotten is they've gotten enough of a rock here to really slow down white's counterplay. And if you give them one more move, they'll play queen a4, hitting the c2 pawn. So the move you have to play is a4. Okay, so a4 is played. The bishop comes to d7. Now, there are a number of different ways here to approach. You can play h4 still. You're trying to play, like if you gave me a million moves, h4, h5, open up the g file and do dirty things to the king. The other move is knight to g3, which is typical, kind of preparing the same idea. h4, h5, because then I can take with the knight. And knight on g3 also stops rook f5. The problem with knight g3 right away is you lose the c3 pawn, so there's no way you can do that. It's got to be h4 here. No, try again. Oh, that's right. This is one of my best games I've ever played in my life. I just remembered that. Okay. I know what you're thinking, Danny. Don't you create all the content on Chess.com? Fun fact, I don't. And I also don't run our social media channel. So the next time you want to yell at me or the Chess.com Twitter, it's not my problem. I don't run it. The idea here is actually it was a game that was played at around the time when I was prepping for this matchup. The idea here is that now that the structure has been so closed, white actually has the time to sort of relocate and remaneuver on the king side. And the point is, h4 is not a bad move, which is why I didn't get a red X, because it's kind of the idea. But the point is, white has the ability to reorganize the king side in a way that you wouldn't normally think of if the center was in any danger at all of becoming open. And I believe the move is f3, indeed. So the whole point here is I'm going to play things like king f2 at some point, okay? Right now I'm kind of teaching, okay? And I'm going to clear this side of the board to start advancing. My guess is probably h4 or knight g3 now. There's also knight f4, but again, you can't move the knight yet, so it's got to be h4. Yeah. And now, now the key is while you're attacking, I guess you know what I probably should be doing to really give the proper endorsement of our lessons here? I should be reading the advice that's being given. And one of the best things about this tool is you're reading an interactive book online, right? So there's advice being given from the instructor, sort of trying to hint at the moves. And I was trying to do this from memory, bluffing at the fact that I'm still a real chess player. But as I look at the cues throughout that I haven't been reading, it's actually pretty obvious what I should be doing. So the point here is that now that you've established pressure on the king side, your bishop is no longer ideally placed. It sort of serves its purpose in the structure. And one of the things you end up doing is remaneuvering that bishop, not just to help clear the g file, but also to eventually disrupt black's structure over here. So the bishop comes all the way back to c1 so that it can head to a3. We can continue to do that. Bishop a3 allows queen a4 right away. Okay, wait a second. I'm reading it now. Good work. Since black, there's no need for bishop a3. There's no need for bishop a3 here, so it probably wants to just come back to d2. d2 or b2. I don't know, d2 feels more natural because it keeps the bishop on this diagonal, but coming to b2 has a bishop here. What would we do here? I guess bishop d2 makes sense because we're keeping an eye on both sides of the board and we've already disrupted their idea of doubling rooks. They're trying to bring the knight to f5, and the point is I want to put myself in a position to play for g4 and h5, as well as we said, follow through on the idea of bringing the king to f2. King to f2 so we can bring the rook to h1. It's the move I want to play. Okay, so it wants me to play rook b1 first. Oh, but which rook? I guess this rook. Okay, makes sense because you don't want to give up the a-pawn. Now we can bring the knight into either g3 or f4. I think coming to f4 makes the most sense, yeah. Because here we hit e6. We also prepare to come to g5. And that's kind of the key point, is that you want the knight in a more effective position than it currently stands on f4. So you continue to relocate. a4 is defended right now by the rook, but you have to worry about them taking it, because if you attack it, they can play b5 and hold on to it. So I had to hold on to the pawn, but now I sort of ignore the whole thing, and it's time to get the kingside attack rolling. Both knight g5 and h5 are kind of the key points. Hopefully I remember the winning combination here against Tatev, because that would be the most embarrassing part. I know what you're thinking, Danny. You've already made a complete fool of yourself. It can't get any worse. So not remembering one of the best games you ever played. But to be fair, at this point, this has been a lot of sort of not debatable, but moves that work within the structure very commonly. You're setting up the goal position we've reached here, where I have the potential for like king f2, to slide the rook, to play h5, to play knight g5. I want everybody to have a party over here against the king. So up to this point, you know, I think I've played well and put the pieces in a prime spot, but now it's really time to start to figure out the right way to move forward. I think the biggest key is to try to open up ideas where knight g5 comes with a little more power. I'm debating between knight g5 and h5, as well as the idea eventually of king f2 and swinging. So I'm going to go h5. Okay. I think the reason I think this was right is because now knight g5 comes with an immediate fork on f7 and h7, right? Now, of course, it can be stopped because he's going to play g6, but I induce that anyway because once I move the queen, he still has to move the rook. The other thing, sorry, not he, she, Tatev, good friend of mine, Tatev Abrahamyan. So one of the issues with this line, though, for black is once you've committed to this counterplay, which is successful, black has won material, you've also opened up potential avenues where you start to see the whole board for white's pieces to work together, right? You see the b-file potential. You see the queen and knight on the king side, and I've already foreshadowed many times that I'd really like to get everybody involved at the same time. g6 is a move that had to be played to guard h7, but it also weakens the dark square. So choosing the right square for the queen is key here, and I think the point is I want to have g4 on the agenda. I want to be able to kick the knight so that when it moves, I'm removing a defender. So I'm pretty sure coming to h3 makes the most sense, indeed. Okay, good move. How should white force away a key defender on black's king side? Well, I already foreshadowed that g4 has got to be the idea, what we're following up with. And bringing more pieces into the king side is the key thing that makes this whole structure work. And White's plan is to ultimately be all in with the attack because you have sacrificed the queen side and opening the center is no longer on the table. The good move. What clever idea did Danny find to allow the rook to join the king side? Was it clever? Oh, shucks, whoever wrote this. You think I'm clever. Stop it. Tell me more. No, I'm kidding. All right. One of the cool things about this lesson, by the way, is at any point, if you don't buy it or if you feel like it's an instructive enough position where you want to take a different approach, you can hit practice versus computer, right? Right. Now, I have the ability to edit a lesson. You don't. That's right. Okay. But you can practice versus the computer anytime in a lesson, which I might have to do after this game, depending on how this goes. What clever way did I find? It's got to be king f2 or g2. I think it was king g2 now that we're here, because that keeps the king off of the file. Why would it be necessary for white to put the king on f2? King f2 ultimately puts the king on the f file and feels a little bit sketchy. Also on the diagonal. So at this point, I feel like putting the king on g2 makes the most sense. Okay. So that was just process of elimination. I actually think both those moves are fine. I think I chose king f2 because in the traditional, one of the ideas in this line is to play king f2 earlier. It's why I played f3, if you remember, much earlier. So I think I was probably just following through with that, but I don't see a clear reason why king g2... Is it possible king g2 was worse because they could eventually sack the h-pawn and have g-file stuff? So maybe I was just being sort of prophylactic in nature, putting the king on a safer potential square. Makes sense. So a3 is here, and this is where the winning combination starts to get scary, because I remember the game, we were both nearing time pressure, and it was concrete calculation time. Get your seatbelt out, buckle up, right? Exclamovich, this guy knows me. This guy knows me. Okay. The main point here is you have to calculate whether the h file will be faster than the a pawn. So something like rook h1, a2, knight h7, queen. Two ladies are better than one. I have two options, knight f6 check and knight takes f8. I already know that one of the crazy ideas that I finished the line with was not playing the obvious check. It was to go to f8. And I want to see if I can play like Danny Rensch from years ago. So let's actually try to get this solved. Knight h7, so rook h1, a2, knight h7, a1 queen. I think if knight f6 check, two options, rook takes f6 and king f7. If rook takes f6, I can play queen h8 check, king f7, and then take f6. I can also just take f6 first. And if the queen takes h1, I take. I think I'm winning material there, but also if rook h1, a2, knight h7, a1 queen, knight f6 check, rook takes, queen h8 check, king f7, then I take. If you take h1, I actually have queen g7, queen e7 mate. I just ignore the second queen. Booyah. And if they take f6 with my queen on h8, I'm kind of assuming that both queen f8 and bishop g5 look super, super nasty. And let's not forget that I also have this rook infiltrating at some point. So in the interest of giving you a true endorsement for the lesson, I think I've got it. I think I've got it. It's rook h1, a2, knight h7, a1 queen. The other move is knight f8 though, because if you take and I just take back, king takes there. Currently black is up a piece, but then I have things like queen h8 and then bishop h6. And if the rook moves queen h7, if king e8, then rook into b8, feels like I'm just rushing through and mating. So knight h7 is going to be super difficult to deal with. And now the question is whether it's knight f6 check or knight takes f8. Queen and knight, the most dynamic duo since Batman and Robin. That's something I would say. Black has more queens, but white has a winning attack. How should you keep it going? Knight takes f8 and knight f6 check are the two main options. We want the h file to be more important than the two queens on the a file. I think one of the biggest issues with knight f6 check is actually king f7. And it's natural when you're calculating, you want to do the forcing moves first, right? Because if the forcing moves don't work, well, then you're up, forced creek, right? If knight f6, king f7, The problem is, how do I infiltrate with enough tempi to distract the fact that I've got two fire-breathing ladies coming down my neck here, right? I mean, this is... So I think knight takes f8 is actually the key, because if, again, it's the surprising move because you're ignoring the queens rather than going for a check, but it's actually the more potent move because it eliminates the f-file. Black doesn't have any checks right away with the queens, and it leaves white with a serious problem coming down the h-file. And if I remember correctly, talking about, I think knight to f8 was actually the move that she underestimated. I think she spent a lot of time on knight f6 check, and knight takes f8 is what she missed. Boom. Boom. So queen takes. Now I have to take h1, which was her only move, by the way. There was no other options because of the power of coming in with mate. And then she played bishop c8 to avoid what was coming. The line I had calculated with king f8, queen h6, you block. I have both bishop h6 and rook coming in. I'm pretty sure that's too good to be true or too strong. That's why she didn't do it. But how did I keep up the attack? That's a great question. Bishop g5 looks strong with the threat of bishop f6. Just first instincts here. And one of the coolest keys to this line is that if bishop g5, queen a2, bishop f6, queen c2 check, is I have king g3. And I'm tucked away real nice and safe. Queen has no more checks. With the bishop on f6, I'm threatening all kinds of stuff, I think. Rook b8 is certainly a candidate move as well. Has to be. Bishop h6 also makes sense. It's kind of the most forcing move. The problem I have with bishop h6, rook f7, what's my next follow-up? And I think at the very least, bishop g5 threatens to take e7 and then take g6. So bishop g5 feels like the move I would have played. I played like myself. I did it. Oh, man. This feels good to play like me back when I could play. Knight to c6 is played, but is this really a worry with takes? Takes with tempo, queen moves. So let's calculate. Bishop f6, knight b4. Bishop takes g7. King takes, queen h7, king takes f8. Then if I take, I'm actually down a piece. That actually feels like a little too much. Something worries me about that line. This is the final... kind of, I have to calculate accurately or everything is for naught. Bishop f6, knight b4. 5 knight takes g6 there. Bishop f6, knight takes b4, knight takes g6. If rook takes, queen h8, king f7, queen h7, the king moves. I get the rook with check, everything falls, and it's probably mate. Bishop f6, knight b4, knight takes g6. The point is if the knight just moves, I'm threatening queen h8 now that the knight is on g6. Bishop f6, knight b4, knight takes g6, knight moves. I have queen h8 and queen here mate. I think that's it. I think it's bishop f6. Boom. Now she has to run that way. She couldn't take because the knight takes g6, but here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Got to be queen h8, rook g8, queen h7. I'm threatening e7, and then I have threats of rook b8. In fact, I remember the final combination now. What? Okay. I don't need to. I guess queen h6. Just play it with check. Okay. And then gain a tempo when you enter. Fine. And now rook b8. If the knight takes, queen e7's mate. And if you do nothing else, I have this. Queen a6. What was the final blow? Black resigned in the actual game. Oh, that's why I don't remember. I was like, I don't remember. How could white put a deadly zugzwang preventing any pawn moves? Oh, shenanigans, you dirty dog. You dirty dog. That would have been the nice way to finish it. How sick was that game? I've only done two. Okay, so I did the first game in this lesson before we started recording. Not this game here, don't worry. Nothing you saw was acting. That was just me legit not remembering my own game and feeling ashamed in the process. But I think we learned something, not just about how to attack the French, but the potential of the attack there. It was one of my favorite games of all time because the main combination. So in reviewing real quick, I actually was in well-prepared territory roughly till about here, right? I remember now that I was really pushing it, and so is Tatev. Tatev is one of the best French defense players on the planet. Like, she knows her stuff in the French, and I've lost to her on the white side of the French. But I was pretty well prepared up to here and understood the potential of White's attack with this very kind of nice f3 idea and kind of remaneuvering the pieces. But after that in the game, I was kind of on my own, trying to balance defending the queen side with breaking through on the king side. And what made this game one of my top 5 when the writers of the course asked me to give them top 5 is really because how often do you get to allow your opponent to get 2 queens on the board and live to tell about it, right? And this is one of those moments where we get to see the beauty of chess, right? That the initiative, that king safety, the ability to keep improving your position are indeed more important than the material your opponent has on the board, right? Sometimes we say that, and it's just a bunch of talk. But in this case, it really was a nice attack that immediately forced her to start parting ways and didn't necessarily stop that the dark squares were a massive problem. Again, yeah, queen h7 I think is winning anyway, but this was definitely the most accurate way to get there. And then rook b8, and I remember she resigned on the spot after that move, but the finish is very nice. I think another move instead of g5, queen d7, also does the job because the bishop is pinned and the knight can't take. But okay, we'll go with what the writer says here is the best, which was g5. And with it, invite you to, again, dive in, use the Chess.com lessons tool. It's your opportunity not just to play like me, that's the joke of it all, but we have play like Magnus Carlsen courses, play like Hikaru Nakamura, play like whoever you want. Send us an email or request it on social media and we'll probably do it. It's a super instructive way to learn, jokes aside. Solitary chess is one that comes with high endorsement from guys like Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov, Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky, training I was put through. Solitary chess is putting yourself in the shoes of a strong player who played a good game. So you already have 2 things. They're strong, and they played good. So by challenging yourself to play like them, you're putting yourself in the critical thinking mind of a better player. Some of you, I guess I might be better than, but at least Magnus is definitely better than all of you. And it gives you the opportunity to improve in the process. So again, lessons is a little more work than some of our other tools. No joke. You're not going to have as much immediate fun than Puzzle Rush. I'm not going to lie to you. But if you're a really serious chess player looking to improve, it's hard to find a tool that wouldn't come with higher endorsements from true professional coaches like the one I used to be. So there you go. That's our endorsement. And as we said, you can also quickly practice, retry, analyze things. If you ever feel like there's something you want to dive deeper into, the lessons tool is fully integrated with all the other features of Chess.com. And hope you enjoyed it. Hope you will give it a try, not just this course, but many others. And we will see you around on the main site.